I want to welcome you to this episode of the Rogues Radio Podcast Live. My name is Dave Beatty. I'm one of your hosts. For nearly 30 years, I've been a professional illustrator, graphic designer, worked on a lot of fun things some people have heard of. I talk about that a lot. Let's see if I can pull something out of my head that's a little bit different. Well, I worked on Mr. Terrific, did a fill-in issue of Mr. Terrific, once worked on the X-Men, almost worked on the Silver Surfer, but that we'll talk about some other time. I want to welcome back my co-host. This is Mr. Eric Alexander. Eric, please say hi to the folks and tell them a little bit about what you've done as a creative professional.
Yes, hello, everyone. I am Eric Alexander, and I am the Chief Financial Officer of Bad Bob Productions, which is a small film production studio in Arizona. And then I was also the associate producer of the feature film Occupants, which features Star Trek Voyager actor Robert Picardo and is currently available on Tubi.
Very cool. Okay, so we want to start off this episode, as we always do, with our pop culture news segment. I was going to let Eric go first. Please, Eric, tell me, is there anything interesting going on you want to talk about in the world of pop culture news?
Well, I think the big news is, the big news probably is the Black Widow trailer, which I don't know. Have you seen it yet?
Yes, I have seen it
several
times.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull that one up. If I can get this thing to work. So I watched it as well, and let's just talk about what was your general reaction towards it.
I quite liked it. I thought it was interesting. I talked to some different people I knew about it. I think everyone's a little confused. It's like, is she back from the dead? And I was like, well, I don't think so. But after watching the trailer, I'm not sure. But I still don't think so.
No, I'm got it from a pretty reliable source that this is supposed to take place. It's a prequel that takes place after Winter Soldier. So this is supposed to take place after the events of Captain America Winter Soldier. And this is a prequel. So no, she is not back from the dead.
Okay. I didn't think so, but some people were asking me questions. I was like, I'm not exactly sure. I do find it a little weird. The one thing I thought about this is that it looks interesting. I'm excited to see it, but the idea of it being a prequel, I thought was a little, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just me. I feel like I'm kind of done with prequels, but maybe that's just me.
I heard somebody else say that, by the way, with their review, and their review was favorable. I think it might have been Dave Cullen. Are you familiar with Dave Cullen?
Yes.
I think it was in his first thoughts, which he wasn't panning it at all, but that was something that he said, that he's kind of sick of prequels. But I will say this: I think it would really cheapen the events of Endgame. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen Endgame, which I don't know who hasn't seen Endgame yet, that wants to, but spoiler alert! I mean, her death in Endgame would be, really cheesy and kind of meaningless if she's brought back. Now they do that in comics all the time, right? So
that's true.
So who knows? I mean, but to me personally, I feel the same way about Iron Man. In fact, it's a weird thing to say this, but the thing I liked the most about Endgame was that that's the way Iron Man went out. Like, I thought that was awesome, that he was the one that took down Thanos, and restored all these people that had been killed,
Right.
I almost get emotional just talking about it, because I just thought that was really powerful, and it was appropriate because Iron Man and Rodney Downey Jr. were really what launched the MCU, really made them something, you know what I mean? Really made them a force to be reckoned with. Really made the MCU. There were Marvel movies before that, but that's how the MCU started, And he did such a great job, and it was obviously his place to take. But I also thought it was emotional that gosh, I'm going with the actress's name, Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, right?
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. Yep.
Natasha
Romanoff.
that she died. I thought, because I didn't see that coming. That was not something that I would have anticipated, that they would kill a major female character. Quite frankly, you don't see that anymore right now. You know what I mean? I was kind of shocked by it. And it was kind of one of those moments in the movie that I think a lot of people, like, when I watched in the theater, like, kind of the air came out of the room a little bit. And everyone was like, what? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
didn't see that coming. So I do have the trailer kind of playing in the background. Obviously, it does look like we are going to see the return of someone right there,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty cool. I'm glad that he's in it, and I think that's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
And then we are going to have him as well. Looks like we lost the feed for a second there.
Yeah. For just half a yeah.
So
gotta love the internet. But yeah, you were talking about how you were excited to see that possibly Jeremy Renner and Sam Jackson, may show up in the film. They're at least going to be, I imagine, represented in at least flashbacks. So,
well, we can see, you can see the share screen, right? You can see that he's in the trailer right there. So yeah, like you said, they could be sort of like flashback scenes or something like that, or who knows? It could be them telling the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like modern, sort of in modern continuity. Who knows how this is going to be presented? Because you're right. I think you kind of touched on something earlier. Is that there are some people that are going to be confused. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to do something to make sure people are not confused. Like have something at the beginning that says these events occurred after, Captain America: Winter Soldier or something like that, 6 months after, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or they're going to have some sort of like an intro, like I was saying, where maybe it's kind of like a flashback form where Nick Fury is telling the story or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just because no matter how much information you put out there are people that are going to be confused because there's a lot of casual fans out there, and they're not going to necessarily know, when this movie is supposed to be taking place. I did hear something that I do think that one thing that's interesting about watching this trailer is that it seems to me like this just has sort of a lot of it has more of a sort of serious vibe to me. Now there is a part coming up where they seem to have an obvious comedic relief character, but it does seem to me overall it's got more of that sort of spy thriller kind of dramatic thing that's a little bit of a departure from the Marvel movies.
Yeah, I would. No, yeah, I would just agree with that. So.
Oh, that was General Ross there, and people have noted that he looks like he's been de-aged. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it does look like he's been de-aged. Yeah.
So people are wondering if this is actually supposed to be some sort of a flashback scene, even before the events of the movie, because it's like, well, he pretty much looks the same that he did in the Hulk. You know what I mean? The actor really hasn't changed because he had a kind of an older look to begin with. But he looks de-aged in this. So some people are speculating that this particular scene may be like a flashback even before the most of the events of the movie, because it does look. I agree. It does look to me like he's been de-aged in this.
Yeah, I would think so.
If there are any parts that you want to comment on, just let me know.
No, I mean, I liked it. It to me, it felt like it was getting back to maybe a little bit of that feel of Winter Soldier, which is still, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, is probably my favorite Marvel movie, but I'm always going back and forth between Guardians and Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier is very good in my opinion.
It's such a great film.
And I missed it in the theater. That was one of the ones that I missed.
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of like I'm hitting myself about it because once I saw it, I think on Netflix. That's how long it took me to watch it. I don't know if I was experienced franchise fatigue or what, but I haven't seen every single Marvel movie in the theater, and I guess sometimes because I just felt a little overwhelmed by it. But I was really having watched it later, I was really upset I didn't watch in the theater because I thought it was so good. I really thought it was an awesome story. And one of the things I really liked in it was even though they had this thing where Hydra had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., I thought it was really cool that it wasn't like they just made all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s bad. It was like, no, they'd been infiltrated, but there were still good S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. And it was like, it was basically the Captain America people versus the Hydra people. And that's one of the things I really liked in it. Just overall, I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah, I go back and forth all the time. I mean, normally it's Winter Soldier, but I rewatched Guardians recently, so Guardians is like at the top of my list. But those two are always battling out of the Marvel films for my favorite. And then usually for my favorite comic book inspired film. I mean, they're both so really good. But to me, this feels like we're getting back to that Winter Soldier vibe, which I think is awesome because I love that movie. So.
Yeah, I by the way, I also like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I did see that in the theater, and I was really surprised because, to me, the Guardians of the Galaxy are kind of like a lower tier, Marvel franchise, if you will, and I was really shocked at how good the movie was and how much I enjoyed it because I didn't know much about the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Right.
and the movie I thought was what I wanted The Force Awakens to be. Like, I thought it was like a really good Star Wars movie. You know what I mean? So that's the vibe that I got from it. I thought it was like just a fun, like Marvel's version of Star Wars,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it. I wanted to get your thoughts on this outfit. I thought this outfit's pretty cool. This white kind of like a white ninja outfit. Like she's got some swords going and stuff.
Yeah, I dig it. I mean, to me, it's it looks like she's going to be going through some costume changes, but the thing that's kind of fun about this, is it could have some little G.I. Joe elements where maybe she does have different outfits and configurations and stuff for different missions or whatever, whether it's a flashback or something that's currently happening, because technically she could be accessing some of her gear that she has because she's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., because she would have still been an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. She could be using new stuff that maybe Tony has supplied, that she's still learning how to use, or she could just be using stuff that she has access to as an Avenger, just outfits we haven't seen her use before. So,
or from her days in the KGB, right? Even
for sure.
Could even go there. My thoughts, or my question is, do you know who this character is? This is apparently the main villain.
It's going to be Task. Yeah, I've heard it's Taskmaster.
Okay, is that the way he looks in the comics?
No, he's got sort of a skull face like Skeletor. Usually has a cape.
Well, there is a skull face there, right?
Yeah, it's usually more obvious. He looks way more like Skeletor, the Red Skull. It's just a white face. He has a hood and a cape, and he's oftentimes depicted with a shield and usually a sword. But his thing is that once he sees someone doing something, he can mimic their abilities.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so we see right here he's got a bow and arrow, so I'm assuming he's running to Hawkeye at one point, so he's mimicking Hawkeye's abilities right here.
There's a pretty good shot right there.
Yeah. And you never know. This could be, depending upon where this takes place, this could be part of that infamous, well, it doesn't look like Budapest, but could, you know what I mean? It's like he could have been a relic of that and have been around both of them, and he's able to mimic their abilities. So,
yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that looks pretty cool. The character. One thing that I criticize the MCU about is the lack of really good villains. That's why I liked Infinity War so much, because I thought Thanos was awesome as a villain. Like obviously, I mean, he beat them. You know what I mean? He beat them. And so I like that when you have a really good villain. I like Loki a lot, as a lot of fans do, because Loki keeps coming back, and Loki's coming back again. Although it's obviously, with the TV series, he's going to be coming back, and that's going to be the alternate universe version of him that we saw in Endgame, the one that stole the Tesseract. So that's kind of interesting. So to me, that's not as much of a cheat. And I do think if they do that with Iron Man, I'm not sure how I'll feel about that. Like if they have like an alternate universe Iron Man, because I feel like they're kind of setting up like that might be an out for them. That might be an out with them with Black Widow as well, to bring her back. But now that she's getting her own movie, I'm not sure if that's I'm not sure what the intention is. I'm not sure if this is meant to be sort of a gift to her, or if it's meant to spawn another franchise. You know what I mean?
Right.
We'll have to see what the intention is. And then here's a character that I think this is the one that I was talking about that appears to be the comedic relief. And I'm curious what you think of this, because this is what's his name? Red Guardian?
Yeah, it's Red Guardian. He's basically the Russian Captain America. And
it appears to me that they're going to, like this shot, he just kind of looks like a little, not quite super heroic. Is that the way that I want to put it? Like,
right.
I mean, he looks tough, but I mean, he looks like he's a little bit over the hill, right?
Well, yeah, they're kind of. I think they're going to have fun with that idea, but at the same point too, later in the trailer, he's fighting Taskmaster one on one, and you never know. He could just be this lovable character who turns out to be pretty competent. If not a little maybe out of touch with the times, and Taskmaster might kill him, and it might help galvanize this group of Russian patriots or whatever you want to call them, because it appears all of them went through the Black Widow program. So, it might help to galvanize them as a group to take down Taskmaster. So, I mean, thematically, it might work. David Harbour's a good actor, so I think that he'll do a good job with this. And I liked him in the trailer. I didn't have any issues with it at all.
I do think that there is at least a little bit of a comedic take on the character, though, don't you?
Oh,
think?
yeah, for
he's
sure.
meant to be somewhat of like a comic relief, because to me, everything else looks very serious.
Yeah.
And this guy, this is the idea of him kind of parading in his suit in his living room. I mean, that is kind of funny when you think about it, But the other thing that I'm kind of curious is I can't help but wonder with the tone and everything like that, and with all the stuff that's been going on with Russia. I kind of wonder what a Russian audience is going to think of this and how it's going to be depicted. Is he going to be sympathetic? Is he going to be kind of bumbling? Is there going to be a little bit of wink, wink, nod, nod going on? Because I do know that, as far as I know, the MCU movies have all done very well in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see, because this is probably the most direct Russian thing, other than the Black Widow herself. But They don't emphasize that a lot. They don't emphasize her Russian background a lot. So this is obviously going to make it front and center. This is a Russian superhero.
Right.
And actually, originally a Soviet superhero, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Soviet hero. Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting to me. We'll have to see how that actually turns out.
But you've got right there sitting at that table, you have three former essentially Black Widows and Red Guardian. So I mean, I think Russia will still be well represented in the film. I don't because see, like right here, he's totally taking on Taskmaster by himself. So that's no easy feat. So
yeah, I just want to see if I can catch it right there. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. We'll see how that goes. I do like the idea of aging superheroes, and especially ones that don't give up.
Yeah.
Because I think I've talked to you before. Like, that was like my one big criticism of Batman Beyond was I just don't think Batman would ever give up. So
Yeah.
I do like the idea of an older superhero that just won't give it up, because that's just in his blood and that's just the way he is, and he's just not going to give it up. So we'll see how that pans out. It looks like a pretty cool scene right there, I think. So,
Yeah.
Overall, I'm looking forward to this movie right now. I think that the trailer looks pretty good, and I think it's hopefully going to be a fun, good film, right?
Yeah, I've enjoyed all the Marvel films, so I mean, I think this will be another feather in their cap. I mean, they've got a great leading lady in Scarlett Johansson. We know that she can play this part to the hill because we've been watching her do it for almost like a decade, or about a decade now. She's been great ever since they first had her in Iron Man 2. She's been great as this character. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun, and I feel like Black Widow is kind of overdue for her own standalone movie, because I think she actually probably could have held a franchise of her own. I think she probably could have been 2 or 3 movies in, and then her death would have been even more tragic. I mean, it was already tragic as it was and devastating, but if we'd had 3 films and really gotten to know her character and really love her and see her as that important role, in the Avengers, and then see her sacrifice, it made her sacrifice even more tragic and, powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only reason we haven't is because Scarlett Johansson is such a successful and diverse actress, and she likes to take different parts and do different things. She did do, she has had some controversy, with Ghost in the Shell and
Right.
some other parts. I actually liked Ghost in the Shell, the movie, personally, but I can understand why people had issues with it. But I think that's the only reason she hasn't done one before, is because she likes to take other parts. She's obviously, a good actress who likes to take and she's willing to even take controversial roles, quite frankly. So,
Right.
I actually think that's a good thing. That's kudos on her, in my opinion. Are we good on Black Widow?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So,
all right. So I wanted to give this show this latest TV spot for the Rise of Skywalker, and there were two things in it. This is the Celebrate TV spot. Have you seen this or heard about this?
I have not seen this one.
Okay, so this is another TV spot. It's not like a whole lot of new things, but there's two things in it that I wanted to call to your attention. So let's see here. First is this scene. Can you see what's going on here?
Hold on, my screen actually just went dead.
Oh, so you can't see
it
anything
at all. Yeah, like my whole screen just went dead. It's really weird. I don't understand.
Uh-oh. It looks like we lost Dave from the feed completely. That is not a good sign. So I am going to see what's going on with Dave here, because it looks like we completely lost him. Oh, he's back.
Oh, sorry, that was great. I lost it. It totally went out altogether. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay.
It wasn't that long, and I was trying to tap. So,
okay.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes, I can see the screen.
So let me get to this goes by really fast. So just kind of keep an eye, and I'll try to freeze it.
Okay.
So you see you got
walking.
These guys walking.
Yeah, some dudes walking. Got it. Looks
well,
like an Imperial. Oh, it's the Knights of Ren. Finally.
Yes. So we know, besides the sort of like, I guess, kind of hero shot that we had in that previous TV spot we talked about last week, it looks like we've got at least one scene of Kylo Ren walking with the Knights of Ren to do something. My guess is to confront someone or something like that. Who knows? You never know what the trailers are all about. Basically diverting your attention and making you think things that aren't going to really happen. But he clearly is kind of marching with them in a menacing way. We can also see his helmet has been repaired.
Yeah, I was going to say it's clearly after he repaired the helmet, so it shouldn't be a flashback. It should be, unless they're showing us something they don't intend to pay off, it should be something that's happening, roughly within the timeline of the movie.
Right.
So
that's, I think, interesting. I think you and I have both kind of felt like the Knights of Ren deserved a little bit more. Actually, a lot more. I think the Knights of Ren should have been sort of a central part of the movie, and explained more and delved into more, at least to see what they do, what they're about, even if we don't get all their origins and all that stuff. At least to just see them in action, seeing them be badass. I wanted to see the destruction of the Jedi Temple. I wanted to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did too.
So hopefully they're going to be doing something cool and not just get wiped out, in 5 seconds or fall into a chasm. They're walking off the edge of a cliff right now, like lemmings. You know what I mean? Hopefully that's not the case. But I did want to point that out because it is another cool shot that we get to see that does look like the Knights of Ren will be doing something in this movie. So that's something that I'm hoping happens, and I'm hoping at least that's cool. And then the other thing is this. This is our first picture of how Princess Leia is going to appear in the new film. And I was kind of taken aback by this because I don't recognize this outfit from the previous films, and I thought that pretty much all the footage they were using was essentially outtakes from the previous film, which as far as I know is the case. Now, obviously, she could have been in other outfits that we just never saw, and that were these scenes were deleted for whatever reasons. A lot of people are looking at the lightsaber, and on this platform, unfortunately, you can't really zoom in or anything like that. But I think it does look like it looks like Anakin's lightsaber. The one that Luke had, the one that Rey brought back and all that stuff. But some people are speculating that this is Leia's lightsaber, which is an interesting idea. I don't think it's consistent with the other two films at all. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think she's just holding Luke's lightsaber. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I mentioned to you that I had heard somewhere or read somewhere that there was spoiler warning, obviously here for Rise of Skywalker. Although in reality, I haven't seen it, so this is all speculation.
Yeah, this is speculation. Yeah.
But I had heard that that the movie is going to open with a scene with basically Luke and Leia from the basically sort of the end of Return of the Jedi, and that Luke is going to be giving Leia basically some of her first lessons, kind of in the Force, and that there may be some lightsaber stuff actually in that sequence, and it sets up the fact that Leia has trained in the Jedi arts with Luke, which explains her flying in the Last Jedi, and that she is actually the one training Rey at the beginning of the movie, and it's going to segue from Luke and Leia training to essentially Leia working with Rey, and that's where she's going to be the one basically who completed her training kind of idea. So
my big question for that is, why she didn't need any training from Luke. She's beat Kylo Ren twice now, right? So why would she need any training from Leia? You know what I mean?
I don't know. Like I said, it's speculation. I read it or heard it somewhere, but I'm just saying that this scene could be, she's turning to the camera, she's holding a lightsaber. We could have just had a flashback scene with a young version of her with Luke, you know what I mean, on Endor, and it could, because hell, this planet could be Endor for all we know. So it would make sense because that kind of turning, holding a lightsaber would be like she's been lost in memory, reflecting, and then she's turning and she looks, and then Rey's doing something. So that's my thought. So, but as far as the lightsaber, I mean, it does look a little bit like Anakin's. And it could either be she's holding Anakin's or it could be hers. If they did that flashback sequence, she could be holding technically her lightsaber. So
it's kind of interesting, because I can't help but wonder because, what I'd heard and I just talked about was that I heard that everything with Princess Leia is outtakes from The Force Awakens, not even The Last Jedi. It's outtakes from The Force Awakens. That's why it's one of the big reasons why Rey is back in her old outfit.
Right,
because they had to sync them up, because to me that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, why is she in her old outfit? We saw her in a new outfit at the end of the Last Jedi. Why is she in her old Jakku rags again? Luke never went back to his rags, his desert rags. You know what I mean?
Right.
But so that was my understanding to fit in with what I was seeing visually. So I kind of wonder with this scene, and if they do something like what you're saying, how did they do it? Did they do it with a lot of body doubles? Because I can guarantee you they never did any of this stuff with Carrie Fisher. So I'm kind of wondering, I can't guarantee that, but I just don't think they did. I don't think they did anything like that with Carrie Fisher. So I wonder how this is accomplished. Is it through body doubles? Is this a situation where they've digitally, altered this somehow, where it's her head and stuff like that, but like it's somebody else's body? I don't know. They can. It doesn't look like that. I don't see any obvious signs of that. But I just kind of wonder how they would accomplish that, because it just seems to me that there's very little evidence that during either of the two previous saga films that they did any kind of scenes like that with Carrie Fisher. And the fact of the matter is, it sounds like, one of the reasons I think obviously that she's not really in The Last Jedi all that much is because she wasn't in great health. And she died very shortly after the film came out. So I think that's one of the reasons that she's in stasis most of the movie. And again, that also goes back to what I've heard, that the footage that we're going to see is not outtakes or anything from The Last Jedi. It's from The Force Awakens. So we'll see. If they do something like you're saying, I'd be very curious to know how they accomplish that, because I question how much actual footage they have of her, of Carrie Fisher, for real. So we'll have to see. I mean, I remember, I think Kathleen Kennedy said she would not do the digital alteration thing. She wasn't going to go the Tarkin route. Which I didn't have a problem with what they did with Tarkin. I actually liked it, but I don't necessarily want to see that with Carrie Fisher and Leia. So we'll see what they do. But a lot of speculation is on this lightsaber, whether this is her lightsaber or if it's, Anakin Luke's lightsaber. So we'll just have to see when the movie comes out. But I thought I'd throw that at you.
No, yeah. Interesting. So one of the other things I want to talk about just briefly, I don't have the trailer pulled up, but did you get a chance to see the Crisis, the final trailer for the Crisis?
I wasn't aware that there was a new Crisis trailer.
Yeah, there was a final one that they released. I was trying to pull it up. I think that's what caused my my whole screen to crash earlier. No, they released a final trailer, what they're calling a final trailer for Crisis. It seems like most of the teasers and everything they've been doing really for Crisis are sort of like, almost like what they did with the Marvel movies. Like, do the end, there's always the end credits scene, right? They've been kind of doing the same thing. Each one of the CW shows in the Arrowverse, whether you're talking about Arrow, Supergirl, or Batwoman, or whatever, or Flash, they've been ending with like a little thing at the end, not before, it's actually before the credits, but it's a little wrap up sequence, and it's been kind of setting the stage, kind of giving us Harbinger, kind of sort of like revealing her role. We've been watching Tom Cavanaugh's character, which eventually becomes Pariah. We've been seeing his character kind of going through machinations and whatever, and it's kind of all culminating and leading to obviously the big Crisis. But they did release a final trailer.
Is it?
Well, let's see.
I got it up here.
Yeah, let it run and we'll see. It might be.
That's the CW.
Yep. Yeah, this is it. So the Monitor is kind of talking about the multiverse and how that all kind of works, and talks about the idea of alternate versions of heroes and whatever. And then we kind of see these different scenes. It's really short. Yeah, if you let it run. So this is obviously Oliver Queen. I think that's his daughter. Here's Batwoman, the Flash, kind of giving us our main heroes. There's a Legends of Tomorrow crew. We see one of the Earths being destroyed. Actually, that's Argo being destroyed. That's Supergirl's homeworld being destroyed.
She normally doesn't have bangs like this, does she?
They've changed her look quite a lot for this last season. She's got a totally new suit. That's the whole nano thing, so it kind of comes over her. This is something, this scene here that they just showed. We've seen that before, actually, in Flash. This is Harbinger. She's basically telling the various heroes, the Monitor wants you all to make your stand on this Earth. And we've got Supergirl, Superman. We've got John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, there in the back. Unless that's Diggle. Sometimes I get them confused. And on the other side, we've got, which I think it might be Diggle because Arrow is sitting there. This is something we've seen before in Flash. That's Iris West, whatever. Yeah, it's real quick. But yeah, she gets disintegrated here in this clip because this is we've already seen this before in the Flash. This is just a reuse of this footage, and then we're watching these Earths kind of be destroyed. Of course, Lois is sitting there next to Superman.
I do like this look better.
Yeah,
because I kind of bailed on Supergirl early in the first season. I do like this outfit, and I like the bangs and everything. Honestly,
yeah.
My understanding is they are working on a series for this version of Superman as well.
Yeah, they've got a pilot apparently in the works.
Yeah.
There's Harbinger, kind of laying out that they're going to have to make a stand. And then Oliver, which is Green Arrow, he actually says, he's like, we need a bigger team.
Yeah.
And there's the Monitor.
Who is this?
That's the Monitor.
That is the Monitor right here.
Yeah. Pretty close to actually what the Monitor in the comics actually looked like. I was kind of surprised. Of course, we saw him in the Elseworlds. And then here we've got some of the team. We've got Batwoman sitting there. I think that's Kara's sister all the way in the back behind Brainiac. I think that's Brainiac from the Legion of Superheroes sitting there at the end, but he's in his human form. And then that's Green Arrow, and then Green Arrow's daughter from the future. So, And here they said we need a bigger team. And then we show the Flash joining Superman and Supergirl. And then we're finding out that Superman has a larger role to play in this than we all originally thought. Because he's kind of been a player, but he's never been a big player in the crossover events. And basically we're finding out he has a major role that he's going to have to fulfill, which leads us into some of the cameos that they show us. There's a monitor again explaining that idea. And they're like, oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll see how this goes down. And then there, of course, is Clark meeting Clark from Smallville, which I'm pretty jazzed about that.
He looks a lot different now, doesn't he? He looks he's filled out a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's more grizzled.
Yeah, and I think he actually looks a lot better than he did in Smallville.
Yeah, he much more the Superman, I think, now. So
yeah,
I can totally see it.
I dig it. I mean, I thought he always was kind of I thought he was kind of wimpy looking in Smallville. So he doesn't look wimpy in this. He looks like a man, you know?
No, yeah. So, and then here's Bruce as Kevin Conroy. And I really get the feeling that this is the Kingdom Come version of Bruce Wayne. Because
this is it, huh?
Yeah, he's got that exoskeleton like in Kingdom Come that kind of helps him get around because he's abused his body, but he's never stopped fighting crime, and it's taken its toll.
And this is arguably the best Batman of all time, right? The animated Batman,
Kevin
right?
Conroy, yeah.
That's cool. I have to say that's cool, and that does kind of help things, right? Do you know how old he is?
I think Kevin Conroy is in his 60s, late 50s, early 60s.
So that's kind of a good way to go with the exoskeleton and stuff like that. You can get away
with
it a lot.
Totally fits.
From a narrative perspective, that makes a lot of sense.
And then there's Kate Kane recognizing him, and he recognizes her, and it's obvious in his Earth that she might have died quite some time ago because he has quite the reaction when he sees her. But they do appear to be like similar, like they, you know what I mean? It's like these two characters at least know each other. So in her, basically in the Batwoman CW universe, it's the same Bruce Wayne, but just he's a lot older and he's been through more. So that's kind of an interesting parallel. So
yeah, it is.
They have a bit of a reaction. We got some different little scenes here. Someone getting disintegrated, more people dying. We got I don't know what you want to call them. They're not the dynamic duo, but we have Supergirl and Superman. They're going to play a big role in this. They're both using their version of the heat vision. There's the Atom, which we know he's going to die probably in this because he's leaving Legends of Tomorrow and he's going to be Kingdom Come Superman. Which the big thing making the rounds, everybody's excited about Crisis, which they don't have in this trailer, is there's a scene of the Kingdom Come Superman with the other Superman by the throat pinned up against the wall, and he doesn't look too happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we get a little bit more exposition. They're just kind of setting it up. And more of there's White Canary. That's what they call her. I didn't make that up. Anyhow,
that's White Canary right there?
Yeah, it's White Canary. I just think they should just call her Canary. It seems so silly. Black Canary, White Canary. Yeah.
Are these Kryptonian ships? What are these?
I'm not sure what ships those are, to be honest. It doesn't look like the ship from Legends of Tomorrow. But then again, the whole universe is in dire threat. And one of the executive producers of this said they still have a big, huge shock of a surprise that no one has seen or heard anything about yet that they've been able to keep totally under wraps. That's going to be coming up as the episodes roll out that fans are going to be shocked. So curious to see what they're going to do.
Got a lot of Supergirl and Superman in this.
Yeah, well, that's because Superman's going to play a big role in this. So,
all right.
There's Black Lightning. Of course, Black Lightning's going to be in this, which is cool. We see him meeting Flash. They're, of course, from different Earths, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll help you out."
The classic, cool. The classic hero handshake.
Yeah,
join me.
I dig it. Yeah, I dig it.
You know what this always reminds me though of now?
What?
Unbreakable.
Oh yeah. To me, what it reminds me of is
so it always gives me a different meaning because I was really fooled by Unbreakable up to the last minute, and when they had that scene where they did the classic, hero class. That's the way I thought I saw it. Like they were going to team up, and I was all happy. And then M. Night just completely destroyed my world, and my brain disintegrated. I was like, no, you know what I mean? That's not cool. You know, it was very cool, but I mean, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and I thought that's what was happening. It was one of these, you know, team up moments. You know,
yeah.
And so anytime I see this now, I always think of Unbreakable.
See, to me, whenever I see two heroes shaking hands, to me it always calls back to the Flash Gordon movie with Sam Jones, where Timothy Dalton is they're on that battling platform, and Flash saves the Baron's life, and he pulls him up, and the Baron is shocked by this trait that the people of Mongo don't have, you know, and that he saved his life. And I'll never forget this. To me, it's one of my favorite scenes in cinema where he says, "Where you go, I follow," and they shake hands. And
yeah, there's a real sense of danger in that scene too that I really like. So I remember as a kid, it really freaked me out. I could imagine. Can you imagine fighting on something like that with spikes coming out of it and things like that? You know.
And then we got a scene of Arrow here doing his stuff. And then the monitor's like, "We got to go." And Arrow's like, "Did we get everybody off the planet?" And he's like, "There's no time." And he's like, "Then we can't go."
Earth 38.
Yeah. Earth 38 is apparently going to be
signature lost,
totally destroyed. There's Pariah.
Okay, let's there. This guy, that's Pariah.
Yeah. It's Tom Cavanaugh who played Professor Zoom with the Reverse Flash in the early seasons of Flash. He's played a lot of different characters. They've really done a lot with the multiverse in the Flash show. But this current version of his character is basically Pariah from the comic books. And we've been kind of seeing him slowly kind of investigating stuff, and then eventually him, you know, emerging as Pariah. So working with the Monitor there. And then we've got, looks like glasses. Superman, broken glasses. This is a cool scene right here. We got Flash.
There we go.
There's the Flash. That's my favorite Flash.
Yep.
That's a ship from the 90s series.
That's what I grew up on right there.
Yeah. The two of them are
watch that. I used to watch that every week when it came out.
So jazzed about this. It's going to be fun.
And I do know that he was he also played his father in the CW continuity.
And he also played the original Flash in an alternate universe. He's the classic Flash, the one with the helmet with the wings on it. I always think of the flower delivery, the florist delivery service, the Hermes.
But this is the 90s Flash. This is
him.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that gives me chills because I used to love that show as a kid, and this is him. You know, obviously his universe is one of the universes in this show. So that's cool. Good on Warner Brothers for that. You know what I mean? That's pretty cool.
Now, you know, this is not the first time he's appeared. He was in the Elseworlds crossover event.
As this one?
Version of,
okay, I didn't know that.
It was very brief, but the Elseworlds event actually starts with him. It's Earth 90, right? Earth 90.
Earth 90, okay.
He's crawling across the ground, and he's trying, and they're in the midst of a battle, and he's been knocked down, and he's crawling across the ground, and he's trying to get this book. It's the Book of Destiny. And that's the first time that we see the Monitor. And the Monitor walks up and picks up the book, and he opens it up, and he's like, "You all did this to yourselves." And he's like, "Why are you doing this?" And then he runs away at super speed, and he basically travels between the parallel dimensions trying to recruit people. And then in that same scene, we see the Smallville version of Green Arrow. It looks like he's dead. We see what might be Dr. Fate's helmet. Like they've been leading up to this for a while. It's pretty cool. So
Green Arrow here's
dropping his bow. Something big's happening. He's reacting to it. And then Pariah's like, "Yeah, it's all going to end." And then we get the logo that they keep pushing with all the different heroes represented in the letters. But yeah, the big thing that isn't in the trailer that everyone's really freaking out about is the shot of the Kingdom Come Superman, you know, having the Supergirl version of Superman by the throat up against the wall, and he looks pretty upset. So
I would like to see that. That sounds pretty cool.
So
obviously I've been looking forward to that because we did a whole show on Superman Returns. So
Yeah.
um,
And we've got this will be, I think it's this weekend. I think the first episode of Crisis starts this weekend. So the crisis is upon us. so
what's the first episode?
I think Supergirl's the first one. I can't remember. Let me see if I can look it up without crashing my computer here. Let's see.
Supergirl is on Sundays, is that right? Or
yes, I think so. Yeah, it's December 8th is the first episode. Let's see here. It's always bad TV when you're sitting here trying to research something. Sorry, everybody. I need the schedule.
Yeah, December 8th, Supergirl will air part 1.
Yeah. Supergirl, and then
December 9th, Batman will air part 2. Batwoman,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
December 10th, The Flash will air part 3.
Yeah.
The final 2 installments of Crisis of... This is from IGN, by the way, that I'm reading from. The final 2 installments of Crisis of Infinite will be held until the new year, with both of them landing on the same night. So January 14th, Arrow will air part 4. And then January 14th, Legends of Tomorrow will air part 5.
Yeah.
So there'll be quite a gap there, almost a month, almost 30-day gap from December 10th to January 14th, where everybody's going to be hanging. What's happening?
Hey, if they do it right, it could be like Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2. I'm down. If you can give me a moment like that, like Best of Both Worlds Part 1, Part 2, I'm so down for that. It's not even funny. That'd be awesome. So
it's hard to emulate that, but
I know. But hey, I could dream, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You've been looking forward to this for a long time, and the trailer does kind of, even without me watching most of the shows, like I've seen a couple episodes of Supergirl. I've seen a couple episodes of Flash. I think I've seen 1 or 2 episodes of Green Arrow. The trailer does kind of get me a little bit excited. I'm curious to see how, because Burt Ward's going to be in it, right? So I'm curious what he looks like. We haven't seen anything of him yet, right?
Well, there's been a couple of photos of him, like set photos, but I'm waiting to actually see what they're going to do with him in the show. I mean, and his role may be really brief. I mean, his Earth might being destroyed, and he might look up and be like, holy destroyed Earth or something, and turn to dust for all we know. You know what I mean?
I hope it's not that. I hope it's a little bit more than that.
No, but they had the shot they had of him. It looked like he had a Ace the Bat Hound like on a leash, and it's like they were on the streets. So it'll be interesting to see what. I'm curious to see how they play it, because if they do it right, he should be Dick Grayson older, and he should be, well, obviously, but I mean beyond that, I mean he should be like in charge of the Wayne Foundation or something, and I mean. In the comics, especially in Kingdom Come, if they're looking at ideas from Kingdom Come to lift, one of the coolest things they did in Kingdom Come, I still think, was, and I had actually done this as an art project, but all the different versions of the Batmobiles were essentially like transforming robots, and they actually guarded Gotham City. And, Batman had a control center where he would, control them from, and then, of course, he had his suit that we saw later that he also wore. So if they do it right, they've got some fun images and some fun things they could do with him too. So, I mean, matter of fact, a big thing in Batman Incorporated, the series I worked on for DC, the big idea with that was that Bruce revealed that he didn't say, I am Batman, like Tony Stark said, I am Iron Man. But what he did say was that Wayne Enterprises had been basically, they were the force behind Batman's technology. And that they had determined in league with Batman that the best way to protect the planet was to have a Batman in every country on the entire globe. So they were going to take Batman's technology and export it out with different vigilante heroes, and Batman was going to work with them and train them. So there would be an army of Batman, kind of like the whole suit of armor all around the world idea, That's why they called it Batman Incorporated.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like it's Batman franchises. It's like McBatman, right?
Yeah, and if they do it right, they could do the same thing. That could be the role that Burt Ward has. He could be in charge of Wayne Enterprises, and he could be the figurehead behind basically an army of Batman all over the world. We'll have to wait and see, but there's a lot of potential, so we'll see what they do with it.
Right on.
Very cool. So I think that's good for the pop culture news.
Yes, I think we're good there.
All right, cool. All right. So we're going to segue into, I guess we should talk about our news just briefly, because I did miss that at the top. So we are, as we mentioned last time, we'll just do this real quick, but we are getting ready to do some format changes. The name of the show is officially going to change. We're not going to roll that out just yet, but it will be coming very soon. New logos, all those kind of fun things. We're going to have all kinds of new fun graphics and stuff for the show. It's going to be interesting. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. So, but that is coming up pretty soon. And again, another reminder that the audio version of the show is currently suspended while we get the live show up and running and get all this going really good. And then we may return to the audio show at a later date.
Right,
so,
and that's part of the reason for the name change is that currently we go by Rogues Radio or Rogues Radio Live. But that was because this was supposed to be a live recording presentation, almost like behind the scenes of us doing the audio show that would come out later. So obviously with that kind of change that we've had, where we're focusing now on the live show, we're not going to be doing the audio show in the near future. That's why we're kind of like we need to get the radio name doesn't quite fit to what we're doing.
Right.
So we're looking at changing the name, obviously, and that'll probably mean some changes in graphics and all that kind of stuff as well.
For sure. So I think we're ready now. We're going to move on to another regular segment. We're moving on to the streaming wars. Lots of activity going on in the streaming wars. It's even hitting the major news outlets, I'm finding. So tell me, Eric, what's caught your attention in the world of the streaming wars?
I was going to come at it at a little bit different angle than I normally do. So normally what I do is I try to cover what it is that's happening with a particular streaming service, how it's sort of impacting the streaming wars, at this point in time, that kind of thing. But one thing that has come up a lot in a lot of the Twitter comments I've seen, we're going to be talking about the Mandalorian, which is on Disney Plus, right? And an interesting thing that I see quite a bit in the Twitterverse with comments is a lot of people are like, I haven't seen it. And I can't afford Disney Plus. And I have been a proponent of kind of showing that side of the streaming war since the beginning, that a lot of people are very concerned because they just don't have the financial resources to get all these different channels. So I found this a little bit older article, and this is from the Los Angeles Times. And it says, how much will it cost to subscribe to the ever-expanding streaming universe? Oh. This is a good question, don't you think?
Yeah.
And this one this is a good article. This is dated October 10th, 2019. So it's still topical. It's an older article, but it's still topical. This information, I think, is all pretty much good. And this is actually a part of their coverage of the streaming wars, and that's the term they use. They said this story is part of a time series on the great streaming wars of 2019. That's how they call it.
Right.
And what's neat about this article is they break it all down. So very first thing you got is the big behemoth in the room, right? Netflix Basic, $8.99, right. But it can go up to $15.99 for HD and multiple screens, right?
Right.
Basic Hulu with ads, which, by the way, I'm one of those people that I'm like, why are you charging me if I have ads? Why can't Hulu with ads be free?
Right.
I'm just putting it out there. So, but Hulu with ads is $5.99. With no ads, it's $11.99. And I would like to mention also that Hulu can now be bundled with Disney. With I think the Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus bundle is actually probably the best value in the streaming wars right now, just because it's so many different things. That's just my take, even without having it. This is the only thing I've had is Disney Plus so far. Amazon Prime Video, $8.99, or it's included with 119 annual Prime membership. So obviously,
Right.
Prime membership, you get Amazon Prime with that. But if you just want the video, it's $8.99 a month. Apple
Oh,
TV.
and just briefly, I wanted to mention this because I thought it was really weird. On Amazon Prime Video, there's a whole bunch of new content that just recently suddenly surfaced, and among the things on there was Space 1999. Just a slight aside. Keep going.
Oh, cool. That's interesting. So, and I would also I like to point out, because I always like to give some attention to the free guys. Comet TV also has Space 1999, and Comet TV does stream on their website. So, and that's a free alternative to Amazon Prime. Apple TV, the one that we're not hearing anything about. It seems like there's like a media blackout on Apple TV right now. So I can't find any numbers on these guys. So I think that whatever their numbers are, they're pretty disappointing. But
Yeah.
Apple TV right now is at $4.99. I've said it before. I still think Apple TV's strategy is just to survive and outspend everybody else. Disney Plus is $6.99, $5.83 with a $69.99 annual fee. Quibi with ads is $5. I don't know much about that one. $8 with no ads. That one launches in April. We've got CBS All Access. That's the home of Star Trek Discovery and will be the home of Star Trek Picard. $5.99 with ads. Again, why can't it be free if it has ads? And $9.99 with no ads. Peacock, NBC Universal. We've talked about this. It says to be determined, but price speculated to range from free with ads. Interesting. And pay TV provider to $10 or $12 April launch. That would be interesting if NBC Universal is free with ads.
Well, see, and that's what I've heard since the beginning. I've always heard that the Universal streaming service, when it rolls out, it's basically going to be free and ad supported. That was the thing that was going to set them apart. It puts them more in line with like Pluto TV and some of the other, free services. Right. Which I think a major player in the free service, I think that's a good idea. That's a different way. That's a good way to differentiate yourself, with outstanding stellar content is to be free with ads. I think Universal, if that's what Universal's doing, I hate the name Peacock, but that's the right way to go.
Right. HBO Max, which I think is going to be a big player, it was going to be one of the more expensive ones at $14.99. That's supposed to be a May of 2020 launch. We'll see what happens with that. HBO Max they have the potential of being a game changer, but are people going to like this price? Right. Showtime is $10.99. Stars is $8.99. I did notice when I was signed up for Disney Plus, they have a deal for Stars, right? Because I guess Stars is part of Disney, so you can get a discount on Stars in addition to the bundle discount that you can get with Hulu Plus and with Hulu and ESPN Plus. There is like a discount that you can get for Stars if you have Disney Plus. Cinemax, $9.99 as Hulu or Amazon Prime add-on. Epix, $5.99. ESPN Plus, $4.99. WWE Network, $9.99. I didn't realize it was that expensive. DC Universe, we've talked about DC Universe. You have that, right? $6.25 a month based on a $7.49 annual fee.
I did. It was one of the ones I got rid of to make room for somebody else.
Yeah, you were predicting they'd be the first casualty of the streaming wars, right?
Well, that's kind of why. It's like if I ditched them for something else, you know what a diehard DC fan I am. I mean, I am. I haven't seen a royalty check in a little while, so I didn't have the money. I had to make a choice. So
I hear that.
First to go. So
I hear that.
And part of my reasoning for it, to be honest, is because the content on the movie side and stuff is not evergreen. Like, you think on that service they'd have all of the Christopher Reeve Supermans, all the Michael Keaton Batman movies, like you'd think they'd have all that content and it would just stay on there. There is some great content they have on there. One of the most amazing things on DC Universe, in my opinion, is they actually went through and took the Shazam, the live action series, where they're traveling around on the Winnebago having adventures.
Yeah, I heard about that.
They actually had that stuff like remastered. And it looks amazing. And I held on to it for as long as I did because of stuff like that and the comics content. I think the comics content on DC Universe is the real gem that's there. But I think that's also the reason I haven't seen a royalty check in a little while. But anyhow, I'll stop harping on that. But But I had to make a choice, and I just it just didn't make the cut. So, and if I'm willing to do without DC Universe, that's saying a lot. So,
and my argument is that the first casualty was Fox. So that's my
argument.
The first casualty of the streaming wars was Fox that got eaten up by Disney. So I'll go through some of these more quickly because I'm not really into them, or there's not a lot of buzz. But BET, it's almost $10. Acorn TV, $5. BritBox, $7. Criterion Channel, $10.99 or $100 a year. Mubai, $10.99.
I never heard of them.
Or $95.88 per year. Canopy is free. That's a public library card or university login. I should look into that. Fandor, $5.99. Sundance Now, $6.99.
What the hell is Fandor?
I have no
Sounds
idea.
like a weird He-Man character. Fandor.
By the name, I'm thinking like maybe Beast movie stuff. I don't know. I have no idea. There's so many. That's my point of bringing this article up. There's so many competitors. PBS Passport, $5. History Vault.
You get that if you just donate to support PBS, though. I mean, really? Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, membership benefit for those who contribute $5 or more per month.
Oh well, I was trying to make a joke. Keep going.
History Vault, $5. Hallmark Movies Now, $5 or $60 annual.
Okay.
Broadway HD, which is a theater-based, $9. AMC Premiere. We did talk a little bit about AMC Premiere at one time.
That, yeah.
$4.99 requires a subscription to cable or other TV provider, or like Xfinity. I've been hearing a lot more about Xfinity. I've been seeing ads for Xfinity. Shudder, that's the horror from AMC Networks. It's $5 a month. B&R Live, The Bleacher Report. That's obviously news. $10. NFL Sunday Ticket, $25. $25 free with DirecTV packages though, and they have packages of almost $300 to $400 per season. Yeah, NFL's making some money. Major League Baseball, $25 a month. Major League Baseball, we covered. They actually are not Major League Baseball. NHL, which we'll get to in a second. Yeah. NBA team League Pass, $17.99. They also have some yearly packages. NHL TV is $25 a month. We talked about in previous coverage that the service, the company that's basically doing all the technical support for Disney Plus, the one that's trying to make it work, they came from NHL and Major League Baseball, doing streaming together. It's kind of interesting when you see how incestuous some of this stuff is. Fox.
It's crazy the fees for some of that stuff when you consider that, that's a single team pass, and they don't have something all year long. I mean, I guess they have some content, but
that just says blackout supply.
Yeah, that seems a lot for
NHL TV.
Yeah.
Fox Soccer is $20 a month. YouTube Premium, $12 a month, or $18 for a family up to 5 members. $6.99 for students. VRV Premium, ad-free, $10 a month. It says it looks like it's a lot of anime stuff. Crunchyroll. Actually, I don't know what Rooster Teeth is. The home of Harmon Quest and Boomerang. Has Boomerang. So I guess it's animation based. I never heard of that one. VRV Premium. Tubi, which Occupants is on. That is ad supported and free. So got to give that shout out to Tubi. Sony Crackle, also ad supported. Always got to give a shout out to Sony Crackle because they are ad supported. They are free. So anyway, here's the bottom line. Streaming alone subtotal, $353.43 per month for all this stuff.
Wow, holy cow.
That's the dollars and cents. That is what the streaming wars is coming to right now. If you wanted to have all this content, you would have to pay over $350 a month.
And the thing that kills me is some of those require like basic cable too.
And that's the point we put here.
Some of the sports stuff is basic cable plus extra.
Well, that's exactly. So they plus baseline internet, which right here they say it's about $45 a month. But I think that's around where I'm at right now. And then of your digital live TV or basic cable, it's another $50 a month. So if you incorporated that your internet prices and your cable prices, now you're up to almost $450 a month if you wanted all this stuff.
Good gracious.
So they do have some disclaimers here. Like they say, here they kind of acknowledge some other things. Like they do acknowledge like Pluto TV. There's Sling TV that's out there now, AT&T Now. These are services, PlayStation View. We don't talk about that a lot, but I've kind of wanted to mention because PlayStation View is kind of doing already what I think is going to happen, which is, they're coming in and basically letting you pick and choose what you want, and you kind of get a bundle of all these different channels and different services. You know what I mean? So basically, we lost the feed for a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we lost the feed for a second. So, like PlayStation View and Sling TV are good examples of kind of where I think this is all going to end up. Is that you're going to have these sort of platforms that step up and say, we're going to give you a smorgasbord buffet package of what you want, and then give you some sort of a discount. You know what I mean? So you can pick your top 5 or whatever, and we're going to give them to you, because that's already what PlayStation View and Sling TV are doing. Interestingly enough, Pluto TV also kind of does that, but their content isn't like it's not like you're watching ESPN. It's like a selection of stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's not everything. So
I recently I actually downloaded the app for Pluto TV for my phone and actually put it on my smart TV, and I've actually been watching news on there because I was looking for some place to just watch news, and finding just news is not easy. It's a real pain. Even it's weird because it's like on CBS All Access, I have access to CBS News, but it's only when it's live. It's not like there's a repository where I can watch repository, not suppository. I know we're talking about news, but give it a press, people. Anyhow, that's also not a funny joke, but I tried it. But I was looking for some place where I could just watch news, and they don't really take the previous broadcast and keep it on there for like a day or two. You know what I mean? So like if you're at work, you could come home and if you missed part of it, you could pick up where it was. It's just live. So if you missed it, you just missed it. It's a little annoying. So I downloaded Pluto TV because I did some research and found out it's a place where I could actually watch some news. So I was checking it out, and they've got it's like an action channel, or a comedy channel, or it's an entire block of programming, and it's like a theme, like a horror or whatever. And they also have specific stuff, like they have MTV, they have CNN, like they have a whole bunch of BET, they have a bunch of stuff. I was kind of surprised, and they have like a James Bond channel where I get to watch James Bond movies. It was pretty crazy, which is funny. I've noticed James Bond's on everything. I think every single one of these services you can watch James Bond on. So
really,
I don't know what the deal is with that.
That's MGM, right? Doesn't MGM?
Yeah.
That's probably because, as far as I understand, MGM it really needs money.
Yeah,
there's a lot of like our friends at Orville Nation. They're really pushing a Stargate revival, and my understanding is a lot of that is just because MGM is so screwed up. You know what I mean? Like they have this franchise that could probably make them some money, but who knows if they have enough money to make it? So
I think too, it's one of those things that apparently they don't know what to do with it. They literally don't. I think it's a question of money, but I think it's also a question of too that I don't think they see the value in it, and I don't think they know what to do with it, because Stargate could be a highly valuable franchise.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think MGM treated Stargate pretty decently in a lot of ways, but I guess everybody has their own take on that. But I mean, they did Atlantis. They did another spinoff. Did quite a few straight to DVD movies and stuff like that. And I think a lot of it, quite frankly, it kind of lost something because oh my goodness, MacGyver, Michael Dean Anderson, right?
Richard Dean Anderson.
Richard Dean Anderson. Because he when he started to back away, the show seemed to kind of go down, which is ironic to me because he's probably my least favorite character on the show.
Right.
Honestly, he's probably my least favorite character on the show, but I think he kind of was the glue. My favorite character actually are Teal'c and General Hammond. I'm kind of weird that way. Those are my favorite characters in Stargate. So interesting. We'll see what happens, right? But this is kind of what it comes down to with the numbers. And when I hear somebody say, I don't want to go down this slippery slope, this is why, because this is where it can lead to. You know what I mean? This is crazy. This is crazy. That's a lot of money to be spending for your entertainment.
Yeah, it is. I think this is also part of the reason, like the box office, the last little while, because there hasn't been any really obvious big, like event type films in the movie theaters, and I'd seen some lamenting over the fact that the box office wasn't what people were expecting. For Charlie's Angels and all these other things. It's like, oh well, it should be doing better. It's like, I think most people are just staying home and watching what they've already paid for.
Frozen 2 did very well.
Yeah, but
Frozen 2 blew it out of the park.
But outside of that, there's just been some debate about why didn't this do better? Why didn't that do better? It's like, well, if you don't have something that people feel like they need to rush out and go see, they already have a ton of content they're already paying for every month.
We could do an entire show on why Charlie's Angels tanked, and there's people that have. So I'll just leave that there, because there's people that have addressed this, and I think the answers are fairly obvious. But I'm just saying we could do an entire show on that. But like you said, I mean there are films that are still doing very well. Like I said, Frozen 2 nailed it. I mean they did very, very well. Joker was still in the top 10 this last week.
Right.
So, I mean, and we talked about what a fabulous film Joker is. So, I don't know. I think it's all about content. I think content is king. I think, that's like when we talk about things like franchise fatigue, or people, I don't talk about that. People talk about that. Like people will say Star Wars has franchise fatigue. That's why Solo didn't do well. That's an excuse, in my opinion. Because you can just compare it to Marvel. They come out with 2 or 3 movies every year that do great.
Right.
As long as you're giving people content that they like and that they're into, you can keep churning as much stuff as you want. But when you churn out terrible content that nobody wanted, nobody asked for, that's what happens. So
right. Good point. So we're going to move on from the streaming wars. We're going to talk about someone who has passed away. This very important writer and creator and figure in the Star Trek community, DC Fontana, passed away. She was a writer who worked on a lot of very, very influential episodes, and I thought we'd talk about some. So if you'll pull up let me share my screen again, because my share screen went away on my machine crash. If you'll share my screen, I've got pulled up off of StarTrek.com. They've got a very nice, coverage here about DC Fontana passing away. But this is the one I thought would be interesting to talk about, because, her role in helping shape the Star Trek universe is pretty great and pretty amazing. So we've got 6 iconic Star Trek episodes by DC Fontana.
So it is.
Yep. She's just right there. And then right here, the first one is Journey to Babel, or Babel. I don't know how to pronounce it.
I always say Babel.
I've always heard Babel. I don't know why.
It's funny.
But this is a very, very important episode for Star Trek fans. This gives us, of course, Amanda, Star Trek's human mother. We get Sarek, which is Spock's human father. Did I just flub something there? Let me take that back. We get Amanda, which is Spock's human mother. And, of course, we have Sarek, which is Spock's, obviously, Vulcan father. And in the episode, it's very interesting. They talk about this. Actually, in the coverage for this, I was going to bring it up anyway. It's interesting how Amanda very much represents his human emotional side, and then Sarek represents his Vulcan, logical side. And you see the two of them kind of coming together, and you see Spock standing there in the middle, where he's got to choose, which is going to win out over his emotional side or his logical side.
That's a great image, actually. This picture is a great image, just to kind of sum up the spirit of the episode and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's just very But that's a very, very important episode for Star Trek fans, and a very, very rewatchable one. They mentioned that in the thing, but yeah, it's very rewatchable. I didn't realize she wrote or contributed to Ultimate Computer. I don't know why.
Not either.
Yeah, but of course, this episode is where they take an AI and basically put it in command of the Enterprise, and the AI goes rogue, as most AI tends to do in fiction. And they end up attacking a bunch of Federation starships and disabling and killing a bunch of people. But it's a cautionary tale about AI versus humans and who should be in ultimate command and control to make the final decision. But it's a great episode. These are all classic. That's the other thing too. These are all classic Star Trek episodes. They're not great. They are classic Star Trek episodes.
I always think it's also interesting the Doctor character that created the computer.
Yeah.
And what a sort of flawed and tragic character he is.
Oh yeah.
And I've always thought that episode was just really, really amazing. And quite frankly, I don't know if the way they did it, you could ever do it again. Because there are things they did in that episode I don't think you can do right now in the current political climate and things like that. But that character is so tragic, and the actor is really, really, really good. A really good actor with I think kind of like a Shakespearean background. So he has this great eloquent voice and everything. He really comes across as this very intelligent, very driven, but kind of mad scientist, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a great episode. Great cautionary tale of the hubris of man. As much as it is man against machine, it's also about the hubris of man. So
very true, very true. So Ultimate Computer, which again I was surprised. I didn't realize that she actually had actually written that one. This is another one I was surprised. The Enterprise incident. I was like, she worked on that one too. I had no idea. I've always loved this episode. In this one. Kirk appears to go mad and takes the Enterprise into the neutral zone or whatever, into Romulan space. And of course they get captured, and it looks like they're going to execute Kirk. And then he turns up later in the episode and he's had an operation and he is undercover and he's running around, and they're trying to steal this new prototype cloaking device because the Federation wants to figure out how it works. It's very much a sort of like one of those, Cold War, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
It's
a classic episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it's another great Spock episode. People in the tributes I've seen, they talk about all the contributions he made to the Vulcan culture and Spock in particular and everything like that. And this is also a very big Spock episode.
And it's interesting too, because this is one of the first times, I think they mentioned this in the coverage, but I remember even as a kid, this is one of the first times I saw a female commander, because the Romulan commander is a woman.
Right.
And she's very powerful and she's very much in charge. And I remember even as a kid, I didn't question it too much, but at the same point, I imagine it was very groundbreaking in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
But another classic.
But the funny thing is, I don't remember questioning it at all as a kid. As a kid, I don't remember it being weird to me or anything like that. I was just like, "Oh, cool character."
I didn't either.
Interesting.
But as you get older,
she digs Spock. You know,
yeah,
the unattainable man. I've always kind of liked that. You know, so
yeah. And then this is a very interesting one here to conclude. Of course, Yesteryear from Star Trek: The Animated series, and this one is a great story, but it also introduces a lot of interesting elements that we see later. They actually used the look of Vulcan from Yesteryear for Enterprise. They patterned a lot of how Vulcan looks in Enterprise off of what they did actually in Yesteryear. And then also too, I think this is the first time that I think it's the Celot, the Spock describes it as the teddy bear with fangs. The first time we see that is actually in Yesteryear, the animated series.
Yeah, it's like a giant battle cat type thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And very seriously, like even if you don't find yourself, you think you'd be too terribly interested in watching a lot of the animated Star Trek show, it's worth watching at least Yesteryear, because it is a great episode. And this, of course, was written by DC Fontana. So
Yeah, anytime people talk about the animated series and some of the controversies or anything like that, because of course Gene Roddenberry himself kind of disavowed the animated series, which I think is a real shame, because I think the animated series is actually really good in its own right, and it is a product of its time, but still I think it's really good. But in reviews they always talk about that this episode stands out, and that it's still regarded as something that's important for canon and things like that.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I know from having read a lot about the Star Trek animated series, they intended this to very much be like the next season of Star Trek. Like if they were still filming, that this would be the next season. And they got pretty much almost the entire original cast to come back to reprise their roles. I used to always have it on in the studio, and when it came out on DVD, I bought it. And I would always have the episodes playing in the studio when I was in my studio working. And I would just have it on because it's so great, because it's like this really awesome like Star Trek like radio play or radio drama, because all the actors are there,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's a lot of fun. So but this is definitely one that's worth a watch. And then here's a big one: Encounter at Farpoint. I've heard a lot of different reflections and stories on her role in Encounter at Farpoint, but this is such an important episode for Star Trek and Next Gen fans. So much of what we would eventually go on to explore and love about Star Trek: The Next Generation actually starts with this episode, and also, of course, the introduction of Q. I mean, Encounter at Farpoint is again another classic Star Trek episode.
It's very important. I mean, this is what launched the Next Generation. And even though I know it's kind of the standard deal today to bemoan or to criticize the first generation of Star Trek: The Next Generation, or the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, I'm not one of those people. And even if you acknowledge that or give that to somebody, I still have to say Encounter at Farpoint was a good introduction to the characters, because I think most of the primary elements were there. And it's interesting. We've talked about this before, but if you want some great insight about this episode and some controversy, some gossip, if you will, watch William Shatner's documentary Chaos on the Bridge, because he did interview DC Fontana.
Yeah,
and she made some interesting remarks that I very much disagree with. That I think that she kind of missed the mark a little bit. So, and that's all I'm going to say, because you can go see it yourself. And of course, we want to celebrate her life and all that kind of stuff and her contribution. So I don't want to be overly critical, but just it's her talking. So it's straight from her mouth, and she can give you her insights. If you haven't seen that, I do recommend it to people that are interested in that dynamic, because this is one of the few episodes also that from Next Generation that Gene Roddenberry had a writing credit on.
Right,
and
right.
there is a lot. There was a very interesting dynamic between the two of them. So let's leave it at that, right? So
yeah, that's best. But no, but again, if you want to check out this article, it is on StarTrek.com. And again, it's 6 iconic Star Trek episodes by DC Fontana. Again, we want to obviously, I'm not a very religious person. I was when I was younger. I'm not much of a religious person now, but definitely want to obviously say I hope our thoughts and everything are obviously with her family and everyone in their time of grief and grieving, and but it is really worthwhile to take some time and celebrate, especially for us Star Trek fans, the huge contributions that she made to the Star Trek universe. And then also, of course, she wrote several of the Star Trek novels, which are quite highly thought of and enjoyed and celebrated. So we just want to take a moment and reflect upon her contributions. And if there is an afterlife, say thank you. But I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about DC Fontana and all the amazing work that she did, specifically with Star Trek. So now she also, too, just briefly, She also had some interesting writing credits, a lot of other things that I imagine people are not talking about, like $6 Million Man, the Logan's Run TV series, Land of the Lost. She worked on a ton of stuff, Bonanza. She's she had a huge role in shaping a lot of television for a lot of those of us that grew up in that era too.
And she did write a Deep Space Nine episode as well, or at least was one of the writers on a Deep Space Nine episode. It was one of the first ones to deal with the Trill. It was a very difficult episode because if anybody knows,
I think it's in this list. I missed it. My bad. It's in the list.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
so
Dax.
Dax. One of the interesting things about this episode is that, of course, the whole idea of the Trill evolved. They were first presented in Next Generation, and they were a lot different than what they ended up being in Deep Space Nine. And in the first 2 seasons or so, you can kind of feel the writers struggling with this. And I heard that DC Fontana struggled with this a lot because people didn't really quite understand the nature of the Trill very well, because they had established something not completely different, but they were in the original version, they were much more sort of a parasite that took over their host, and the host was meaningless. That's the way it was presented in Next Generation. And in Deep Space Nine, they wanted to go more with the symbiote idea, that this is a unique, different person. And she was the first person, as I understand, that had to tackle this transition specifically. And my understanding was she wasn't given a whole lot of information, and it was a real struggle to figure this out, because, like I said, the whole Trill idea evolved over time from the way it was presented in Next Generation to the way it ultimately ended up in Deep Space Nine. So right. My understanding was it was a very difficult episode to write.
So for the listeners or the viewers at home, you're going to have to ponder if I made that mistake on purpose or if it was truly accidental. Maybe I wanted to put more highlight on this episode. But anyhow, she did have a hand in shaping almost every single iteration of Star Trek. And it's interesting, too, because in a weird way, when you think of Enterprise, it's interesting how something she created for the animated series, carried over into a completely another version. It's interesting how it all kind of, if you contribute something great to the Star Trek universe, it can always come back and add, some extra backstory or tapestry or a flavor to something that, otherwise would just be something they would design, and put together. But it's interesting how they're able to call back to something like that. So it's very interesting. And again, we just want to take some time and celebrate her contributions to Star Trek.
And I do want to mention there are a lot of fans, myself included, that do think of DC Fontana as one of the creators of Star Trek, even though it does only have Gene Roddenberry's name in the credits for the created by. A lot of people think her name should be up there as well, along with a couple of other people. So that's how big her contribution is and how valued she is by many of the fans.
Very cool. All right. So we just wanted to take some time and celebrate her work and talk about DC Fontana. So for our last segment, we're going to be continuing our crazy Mando coverage. It's not really crazy, but we're going to continue to talk about The Mandalorian, obviously on Disney Plus. Eric, I know that you obviously did not like the episode Sanctuary because Michael was a little shocked at your review that you, or what is it? Was it you or is it Steven? It was my friend Steven Reed. Someone completely hated this episode. Did you completely hate this episode?
That was my initial reaction when I first watched it. And so I decided to go ahead and watch it again. This time with my kids, because my kids are here. They're normally not here during the week, but they happen to be here, so I watched it with one of my daughters, and I wanted to watch it a little bit through her eyes as well, because she loves Baby Yoda, she enjoys the show, and so I wanted to kind of sit there and watch it in a different environment after kind of my initial reaction, was just, man, it was bad. I was just really upset. I felt like there was like a bait and switch that had happened to me, that I was like, oh, I thought this show was one thing. No, it's something completely different. So anyway, I watched it again right before this episode, and I watched it with one of my daughters. And I have softened on it. I still have a lot of issues with it, but I have softened on it after watching it for a second time. But I do have a lot of issues with it still. And I think one of the biggest and most valid criticisms of this episode that a lot of people are saying is, I felt it was a filler episode. I felt like it was just a deviation from the story that I felt we were leading up to. It just seemed like a little side quest, if you will, to use that analogy. So that I still feel that way. I still feel, and I also feel like Baby Yoda was very cute. My kid was squealing and screeching, and every time she saw Baby Yoda on screen, because Baby Yoda was beyond cute in this episode. But a lot of people that dislike Baby Yoda, the reason they dislike Baby Yoda is because they feel that Baby Yoda is just a market grab, just an idea to sell toys, and just there's no substance to it. And I would say this episode makes that argument for them very well. That Baby Yoda was not relevant in this episode, in my opinion. So that I think is a bad thing, because I love Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda is my favorite thing in The Mandalorian. Absolutely, 100%. I love Baby Yoda. But I felt like Baby Yoda was kind of used like as a prop piece in this episode.
Okay. I didn't hate the episode. I didn't think it was as strong as the previous ones, because I felt like we had an obvious trajectory where we were going. I couldn't see the criticism that it was a bit of a filler episode. And with not having that many episodes, I could see where certain Mandalorian fans would be upset, because it feels like we're taking very valuable, precious time, to sit aside in this particular episode. But at the same point, in terms of story, I could see where initially the Mandalorian would be thinking we need to find somewhere to lay low, but you wouldn't have to necessarily go through the story in quite the way that they did. I didn't hate the episode, though. I thought it was fine for what it was. I enjoyed it. It to me, it was much more like that first episode. It felt like a live action Clone Wars episode is what it felt like, because even in those shows, there's always those weird little episodes where it's like, okay, well, I guess we got to kill some time, which is always kind of weird when you consider how much money they're spending,
But let's be clear. I mean, half of the series is over now. I mean, this is the 4th episode. There are only 4 episodes left. Right.
But we'll see what they do with it. We'll see, because we also know, too, that they greenlit for another season, and they're working on the other season. A good example of this, to take it back to the streaming wars and talk about DC Universe. The first season of Titans is a little weird and uneven, and for me, I found it kind of hard to watch, and I just stopped watching Titans at one point. I just gave up on it. I was just like, I don't get it, and I just stopped watching, even though some people quite love Titans. And what I come to find out later when I looked into it was that they had decided to take basically what they were building towards, what was supposed to be the final episode of Titans, which is supposed to be a big cliffhanger, possibly a reveal for Nightwing. And they decided instead, well, let's put that into season 2 of Titans, which is where Titans ends up, spoiler alert, with Dick Grayson in the Nightwing outfit, and let's play it out over 2 seasons instead of playing it out into 1. So if they were in the process of filming and making the show, and they go, hey, this is really good, instead of having it be here, let's go ahead and push that out for season 2, and then it shuffles the episodes in a weird way, and then you got a spot you got to fill. So I hope that's not what they're doing, but at the same point, since we're getting a season 2, I could see being one of those weird creative decision, 11th hour, well, let's mix it up because let's push this out. You know what I mean? Because we're going to do it.
I would really hate that, because we already see, we're only 4, there's only been 4 episodes, and we obviously see, to me, it feels like we see a lot of the Mandalorian side questing. Okay. And that is, even as much as I'm not liking it in this current context, it's not a bad idea to have a character like that, because then you can have sort of standalone episodes where he does different things and does things that are not necessarily part of the overarching story. But But the thing that I kind of want is I want the first season to tell me a story, and the next season can tell me a different story. See what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I would prefer. That's what I would like. Otherwise, I feel like it's just a cash grab, and that they're being disingenuous. I guess is what it comes down to. Down to for me. I don't feel that's cool. I want to see a story in the first season, and then I think it would be fine to have another story in the second season. Now, are they going to do that? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if they anticipated the response to Baby Yoda, because people love Baby Yoda. I mean, my kid didn't really care about this episode that much. My daughter was just happy to see Baby Yoda in scenes,
Right.
So I don't know if they anticipated that, because if Baby Yoda, for instance, is pawned off at the end of the series or something like that, I don't know how people will respond to that. But also, I'm not sure how the producers and the creators, if they anticipated how much Baby Yoda is. I said it before. I just want a Baby Yoda show. I really do at this point. I just want a Baby Yoda show. The Mandalorian is okay to me. I don't hate the Mandalorian by any means. There's a lot of things I like about it, but I'd be fine with a Baby Yoda show. I mean, just give me a Baby Yoda show and have Baby Yoda running around in a little starship, going on adventures. I'd be cool with that. I'd watch it, but we'll have to see what they're going to do. I think that would be terrible if they're basically, if that decision was made that, hey, we had this really cool idea, let's just leave it for next season. And that's why we're getting episodes like this, in my opinion, where it's kind of like, this just doesn't seem to fit into the larger narrative to me. It seems like it's a little side quest. I get the basic idea. Okay, the basic idea. This isn't a spoiler. I mean, it's called Sanctuary. It's the name of the name of the episode. That the Mandalorian's going to look for some place to cool off, to get the heat off of him, because we know the Bounty Hunter Guild is after him. We know that, and we right. guess the Imperial Remnant is after him, because we're still assuming that's the Imperial Remnant. That seems to be everybody's theory. So it does make sense that he would try to look for some place that's inconspicuous to take the baby and hide out. I get that. I get that basic idea. It's just that the way that it was executed, I had a lot of problems with, and I thought there were a lot of like, I'm noticing a lot of logic and like story errors in the show that really irk me. And for instance, this is not a huge spoiler, okay, but it's like a mild spoiler, I guess. I don't consider it a spoiler to just tell you who a character is, but the female character that's introduced. Well, there's two major female characters that are introduced. Two big female characters introduced in this episode, and one of them is a villager who's like a part of a civilian population, that typical idyllic village, right, scenario.
Right.
And the other one is a soldier, okay, a straight up soldier, and a former rebel, which I thought was interesting, right? This is the first time we've met anybody from the rebellion, okay? And that should have been a bigger moment than it was. I mean, they treated it like an afterthought, just a basic casual conversation. This is the first time we get to see anybody from the rebellion in this show. And we're told she's a shock trooper, which I don't ever remember any rebel shock troopers. But, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not like familiar with all the EU stuff or anything like that. I just thought that was a little weird. The rebels are not shock troopers. They're rebels. They're kind of like commandos. They're kind of like hit and run, guerrilla style. They're not, but whatever. Okay. So anyway, but she's a rebel shock trooper, and she said her I guess her introduction to the Galactic Civil War was to clean up. She was involved with the cleanup on Endor, not necessarily the primary battle, which I thought was interesting. The way she phrased that was that she was involved with the cleanup on Endor of basically getting rid of the last of the garrison. And then apparently she went off fighting these remnants, the warlords. And then eventually she got to the point where it's like, okay, now we're just peacekeepers. Now we're like, protecting politicians and stuff like that. And I didn't sign up for that. I'm out. Right. So it was very casual. And to me, it's like, this should have been treated as a much bigger deal. And we should. I wish we had gotten a little bit more insight into what's going on, other than this sort of casual, like, oh well, the politicians need bodyguards and stuff, and they want to keep the peace and deal with riots and stuff like that, and that's just not my bag. I'm just like, okay,
Right.
but I'll tell you this: I was making some comments when I was watching with my daughter, and they were snarky comments, And my daughter said something that I thought was kind of cool, which I don't think this is what happened, but it's just kind of interesting to see how other people look at things. And she said, "Dad, what if she's lying? What if she's not a rebel at all?" And I thought that would be cool. If she lied and she isn't what she said she was, and she's something completely different, I could dig that. I could dig that a lot. But I just don't feel watching this show that it has the depth or the courage to do something like that. I think that'd be really cool.
That's a very interesting idea, and the show has surprised me a little bit in the first couple of episodes. So they might do something interesting like that. It'd be an interesting twist. So
I think it'd be an awesome twist. I mean, I think clearly she's meant to come back again, but we can't be sure because, interestingly enough, the main picture that shows up, when you bring up the Mandalorian on Disney Plus, like the little teaser picture. It's the Mandalorian with the IG unit and this character, right?
Right.
I keep saying this character. What's her name? Cara Dune. Cara Dune.
Yeah.
Right? So this is Cara Dune, right? And Cara Dune we're being told, is a rebel shock trooper, who's as we understand it, her first job was to clean up Endor. After the Battle of Endor, she was there getting rid of the last Imperials. And then that was her job after that, which she was helping to root out the Empire. And then once the Rebel Alliance started to take over, started to become more of a political force, and they needed more of a policing thing, she's like, I'm out because I'm not into that. Which I'm not sure if I'm like, is that really a good character that you don't want to actually, be involved with like the actual keeping of the peace and actually helping people and all that kind of stuff. That's neither here nor there, I guess. But I do think it would be interesting if she was lying. If she was lying, then I would feel like, oh, they got me. Actually, this is a much better episode than I thought. But I just don't feel like this series would take a chance like that. I think she's exactly what she said she was, and I have a big problem with that because getting into more spoiler territory. Although I think a lot of people already know this. There's a scene where we see an ATST, right? A Scout Walker. Right. That apparently has been repurposed by these bandits who are harassing this village. And they figure this out right away because they can see the footprints and they know exactly what it is they're up against, right? Right. And her initial reaction is, okay, well, yeah, I'm done. This is too much for me to handle. I didn't sign up for this, which I'm not sure why she signed up for this in the first place. That didn't make sense to me either because she basically told the Mandalorian to leave. This is her planet. Go away. But then she's going off with them. Again, these are little writing problems, just like they irk me, I'm like, so anyway, she decides that she's going to do this. She's going to help these villagers. And they find out that they're up against an ATST, and she's all like, okay, I'm out. Didn't you say earlier that you fought at Endor and the Ewoks beat these things with trees? Right. I'm like, a lot of people have said that too. It's like, okay, were you? So maybe. Again, that's part of what my daughter's insight was. It's better than mine. Well, maybe she is lying because, as far as I could tell, the Ewoks and the Rebellion ate those things for breakfast. So it seems weird. So I guess with that, if I'm proven wrong and she is in fact lying, she made this all up and she is completely something different, I will totally look at this episode in a completely different way. But as it is, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense that she would be intimidated by an ATST if she had anything to do with the Battle of Endor, because they destroyed those things like nothing. With a bunch of Ewoks. Right. So why would she be intimidated? It'd be like, oh, She should be like savoring this, being like, oh, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly how to take these things out. We took these things out with a bunch of primitives, a bunch of teddy bears. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you cut up a bunch of trees, you put them on one side, maybe a little bit on the other side, and then as it walks through, you just cut the rope, and then the trees trip it up, and then it falls down. I saw that movie.
Yeah. No, but she's saying she was there.
I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about the fact that if she was on Endor, she should know all kinds of amazing ways to stop a Skywalker. So
yeah, exactly.
I didn't think about
that. Unless my daughter's right and she's just lying, which that would be a great twist if she's lying. And then I will admit I would look at this episode completely differently if that's what it turns out, that she's some sort of a huckster. You know what I mean? That would totally change it. But I just don't think they have the depth, you know what I mean, in the writing to do something like that, because I do think that this is a live action cartoon in a lot of ways. And I think that's in good ways and bad ways, because some of this stuff is just so superficial. It just doesn't fit for me with the logic test. It's like, you know, I can suspend my disbelief quite a bit. I mean, I love Star Wars. I can suspend my disbelief quite a bit. I can believe in the Force, you know, within certain you know, like I said, I still don't like the idea that the baby is only force has the only reason the baby has force powers is because it's from the same species as Yoda, and the Yoda species just all have force powers. I hate that idea. What I prefer to think is this baby is 50 years old and somebody taught it how to do this. Okay.
Right.
That's what I would like to believe. That's in my head canon, because I like Baby Yoda. I want to believe, hey, this is not, it acts like a child, but it's not really a child. It's 50 years old. So someone could have taught it how to use the Force, or it could have a direct connection to Yoda being Yoda's offspring or Yoda's clone. Okay. So that would make more sense to me. All right. But, and I don't want to badmouth Baby Yoda, because I love Baby Yoda. But the thing is, at a certain point, I kind of start to lose my suspension of disbelief, and then I'm kind of like, okay, that doesn't make any sense with what you just told me 5 minutes ago. You told me 5 minutes ago you were at the Battle of Endor, or at least you were in the mop-up crew. What, they didn't tell you stories of how they took these things down?
Right.
And how they took them down with a bunch of Ewoks?
Yeah.
And you're intimidated? That this tough warrior woman is intimidated when she was there?
Right.
So, you know, there's some logic problems that I have where I just feel like there were these leaps that were like, they were just like a little too far for me, you know?
No, I could totally see that. I hadn't considered the fact that if she was at the Battle of Endor, or been around a bunch of rebel soldiers who had been at the Battle of Endor, that she would have heard all kinds of crazy stories about, you know, all the crazy stuff they did, you know, and how effective a bunch of teddy bears were against the Empire. She would have probably gotten sick of hearing those stories, I would imagine, because they would have just kept going on and on about it. And see, she doesn't really fit my mental image of what I thought, because when we first saw the trailer and I knew she was going to be in the show, I didn't do a lot of heavy research. But for some reason in my mind, I thought she was a female Mandalorian. Because,
which, by the way, I'm very glad they didn't do that, because a Mandalorian without the mask, I don't want it.
Well, see, what I thought they were going to do is she was going to be like a disgraced Mandalorian. She didn't have her helmet. She's out on the outskirts because, you know, and she's having a hard time surviving because she was cast out by her tribe. And I thought that the role that they were going to play is that he knew her from, you know, when they were younger or something, and they had a connection, and he was like, well, I can look past that, you know, kind of idea. And then they were going to team up together, because right now, you know, he's kind of on the run. I guess that's, you know, that was just what I was thinking. I was thinking that she was like maybe a form, you know, kind of like a, you know, I want to say Ronin, but I know a Ronin is a master of the samurai, but, you know, that kind of idea, she was going to be the Ronin equivalent of whatever a Mandalorian is. and she had lost her helmet, and she was disgraced, and she was kind of out on her own. She didn't have the tribe to back her up, and he was going to come across her on this planet and go, hey, you help me out with the kid here, like I thought it was going to be that kind of thing, but it is very much a side adventure, and it didn't fulfill my mental images of what it was going to be at all. Like I said, I didn't hate the episode. I thought it was fine.
What was your first reaction to finding out that she was a rebel?
I thought it was cool, but at the same point when she said shock trooper, I was a little thrown off, because that doesn't, in my mind, that's not what a rebel soldier would be.
No, that doesn't fit a rebel. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. I mean, look at the Resistance and how pathetic they are.
Right.
And this is supposed to be after the New Republic. They're pathetic. Right. They don't have any shock troopers. I remember looking at the Rebel Trooper toy from The Force Awakens. He looks pathetic. He looks like a peasant,
Right.
So it's like some of this stuff is just like, but again, hey, if my daughter's right, that would be cool.
Yeah,
if she just lying through her teeth,
I like that story a lot better. That she was lying. She turns out to, maybe she's a former Imperial shock trooper,
Right. Yeah, that would be really cool, right? Yeah. She
didn't know any of the battles of, about what happened in Endor, because she was someplace completely different.
She ran away.
Yeah.
Maybe she ran away. That would, but do you think they would? I don't think they would be daring enough to make choices like that. I think that she's kind of just supposed to be what you see. Because I think, going back to the live action cartoon analogy, there's good and bad with that, and typically with the cartoon type writing, what you see is what you get. You know what I mean?
Right. And we'll see. That's gonna be the litmus test. Moving forward, we're gonna see where these characters end up. Because where we find them at this stage in the show and where they are by the time that we're getting towards the last episode, there should be some development and some change, and maybe the characters will be different. So we'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, I didn't hate this episode. To me, it was kind of more in tune with like the first episode, which, like I said, I felt like was like a live action Clone Wars episode. That's not a bad thing if you like Clone Wars, but I didn't think it was good as the second or the third. Those episodes I thought were absolutely outstanding. And I thoroughly loved them. I still enjoyed this episode. I'm still really enjoying the show. But like I said, I hadn't quite seen some of the logic gaps and other things that you were pointing out either. I didn't scrutinize the show quite that heavy. But I did remember when she said she was a rebel shock trooper. In the back of my head, I'm like going, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why the rebellion would have shock troopers? Like, aren't they a ragtag fleet? And they're just cobbling together with whoever they can find. It does fit a little bit with the more militaristic hardline idea that they tried to give us, or they did give us in Rogue One. Cassian Andor is not exactly, when he shoots that other guy at the beginning of, spoiler alert, Rogue One, he shows us a darker side to the rebellion than I think we had thought of.
They're rebel spies, though. I mean, that's direct from the crawler of the original Star Wars. They're spies. You know what I mean? That's what they do. It's
yeah, I know, but I mean,
that's the idea I got from Rogue One. Is these are the spies who stole the rebel plan. So they're gritty. They have to be gritty because that's what spies do. They assassinate people. I
know,
because for them, information is the most important thing. Information is power, literally. So they can. I mean, that just makes complete sense to me. That makes complete sense to me. It's not the same thing as a shock trooper that goes in and cleans out legions of stormtroopers that are entrenched on a planet.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. Those are just my impressions. Like I said, I hadn't quite seen it and seen the logic gaps, but when you point them out, especially the idea that if the character had been on Endor, then she'd have much more interesting ideas of how to stop a walker than a scout walker anyway than what they did. So
right. So I did want to at least give because a lot of people are not talking about this character. I don't even remember her name. Do you remember her name?
No, I do not.
So because everybody's talking about Cara Dune, but a lot of people aren't really talking about this character, which is the other major female character that was introduced in this episode. And this is the villager who is also a mother, who was involved with defending their village against these marauders. And again, kind of in the, I think, just minor spoiler territory. This episode's been compared a lot to what, the Magnificent Seven, right? Like the idea of these or the Seven Samurai, right?
Seven Samurai. Well, Magnificent Seven was inspired by Seven Samurai. It all comes back around, which goes back to my thing where I talked about Battle Beyond the Stars, which Battle Beyond the Stars was inspired by Star Wars and also, Magnificent Seven and Seven Samurai. It's supposed to be Magnificent Seven or Seven Samurai. Well, actually, Magnificent Seven in space. And I thought it's interesting how it all kind of circles around this similar watering hole. So. And
obviously, the Mandalorian is literally the man with no name. I mean, he's the Mandalorian.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but the thing is with this character is in that scenario. She's one of the villagers. One of the interesting things I thought, and people have picked up on this, but they haven't talked about it a lot, is they have the moment where they're trying to train the villagers, and the villagers are completely inept for the most part and pathetic. Especially like there were the two male characters were like Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I thought. I mean, they were clearly like just comic relief, I guess. I don't know. I thought they were silly. The guys who hired the Mandalorian, those guys, I thought they were just kind of pathetic, quite frankly. But anyway, this character kind of becomes a love interest for the Mandalorian, which I thought that was kind of a little weird because that was way too rushed. But the thing that I was kind of intrigued about a little bit is when they're doing the training, apparently she has training.
Yeah.
So what's that?
I said she can shoot.
Correct. So I feel like we're definitely going to see this character again, and I kind of speculate on her origin. You know what I mean? It seems kind of weird that there would be two rebels here on the same planet that have no idea about each other or whatever. So that might be too much. But apparently she had some sort of training. I guess you could say maybe she knew how to hunt or something like that. There's certainly lots of people that are great shots that are hunters or things like that. But I feel like we're going to see this character again, and I am a little bit intrigued about what her backstory might be, as far as where she got that training and what she actually is. I think it's a little strange. I mean, why is she on this backwater planet in this pathetic little village? If she does have some sort of crazy backstory,
right?
Is she hiding from something the same way that the Mandalorian was? She seemed a little too wholesome for that. That was so. I'd be curious to see what they're going to do with her because you think she'll be back?
I don't know. I mean, if this was truly just a side episode, no, not at all. But if it turns out that Gina Carano's character, which is the Cara Dunes, if she shows up at some point and it turns out that her backstory is a lot more elaborate and interesting than what we were told, I wouldn't be surprised for this character to show back up too. I wouldn't and literally maybe in trailing the other character because she knows that the other character was lying, you know what I mean? And might be looking to betray the Mandalorian. She might show up and have the Mandalorian's back in a situation in which he doesn't realize he needs someone to have his back. So within that context, I can, but initially off the top of my head, I'm going to say probably not, because I do feel like maybe this was just a side adventure. So,
well, one scenario that I could see, and I don't think necessarily this is just a scenario I could see is obviously we had a situation where it's very clear that the Bounty Hunter Guild is still looking for the baby Yoda. And that's why the Mandalorian decides to leave the planet. There's an interesting consequence of that. And again, we'll see. It's based on the strength of the writing. If this bounty hunter was able to find them on this planet, it seems to me that they would go back to this planet to find more information on the Mandalorian of where he might be going. Right. What was he doing? And so what I'm imagining is a scenario where either the Imperial Remnant or the Bounty Hunter Guild kidnap this woman, take her, and kind of use her as bait to get the Mandalorian. So
Yeah,
that's a scenario that I could see happening, and then it would make sense to have her back. The thing that I thought was really weird was the whole, like, they kind of had like this little thing where they were kind of playing with this idea that, oh, the Mandalorian's just gonna take his armor off and spend the rest of his life with this woman, and I was just like, after 5 minutes, really,
right?
5 minutes, and she's never even seen the guy without his mask. It makes me think, like, it would be so funny if they actually did show him like take his mask off, and he's just ugly as sin, like he's just all screwed up, his eyes are like falling out, you know what I mean, like, which would make sense. Right. He's a warrior, right? So like it would be like he's just all screwed up and disgusting looking, and like there's pus coming out of him, but it seemed funny and silly to me that she was like already like falling in love with this guy, and they kind of play with this idea of the Mandalorian just gonna, like, he's just gonna take the armor off and just settle down and all that kind of stuff, which, I don't think he entertained that, but that kind of narrative was being put out there. I don't see that scenario. If they did that, I'm going to be really angry if that's what happens. The last episode of The Mandalorian is just him like kicking his feet up in the little village, and we get to see his face and all that kind of stuff, and he's hanging out with this lady, and that's roll credits.
Well, you never know, that maybe that's what leads to Baby Yoda getting in his own ship and disgust and flying off. Maybe that's the beginning of your Baby Yoda show.
Okay, then I could dig it, because he was playing with the controls, right? So
yeah.
He just kind of just takes off by himself. Yeah,
he just gets in the ship and he's just like, I've had all this I can take. This is disgusting. He just flies off the planet by himself.
It's just disgusting.
He's like, I'm just going to find my own purpose out amongst the stars.
I like that. Okay, I could dig it. But I do. I'm trying to figure out, because I think this character is going to come back. I think that I hope that they wouldn't set us up for something like that without giving us any payoff at all, because clearly there's something different about her. Literally, I mean,
right.
The other villagers are pathetic. I mean, absolutely pathetic. Right. So,
and the village is already playing a different role in the show in this episode than what I thought it was going to play too. Because what I thought they were going to do is, I thought they were going to do a spin on the Lone Ranger idea, and he was going to get bushwhacked and maybe almost killed. And then he was going to wind up on this village where he was going to be nursing back to health. And then, we'd see like a recreation of the scene with the Lone Rangers, shooting his 2 pistols, kind of idea. And as he's recuperating, and then he has a connection to a different kind of tribe than just the Mandalorians. And then he goes back out, you know what I mean? And kind of completes the mission he was trying to complete when he was basically kind of taken off the board. So,
I like your story a lot better, to be honest with you. I think that would have been a much better story, and it would have made sense, because he could have gotten hurt in that last huge battle, which would have made sense. I mean, he was totally outnumbered and everything. He could have been all beaten up and all that stuff, and that would have made a ton of sense. But like I said, some of the writing concerns me in this show, because it's so thin. Again, I think the live action cartoon, the good and the bad of it is just it's what this show is. It is a live action cartoon.
Yeah. All right, so I guess that's good. It's if you feel comfortable with that, for our thoughts on the latest episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, unless there was anything else that you wanted to say. I mean, you said you liked it, so I would like to ask you, what is the thing that you just like really, really pulled you in? What is it that you really, really liked about this episode?
I'll be honest with you, I liked a lot of stuff with Baby Yoda.
Everybody loves Baby Yoda.
Yeah, it was just a lot of. And I like the idea that they kept to the lore that they established with the Mandalorian not taking his helmet off. You know, for half a second there, when she went to take his helmet off, I was like, man, don't do it already. Like, at least get us a couple seasons in before you do it. Because if they take his helmet off and it's not Boba Fett and he survived the Sarlacc pit, I'm going to be horribly devastated.
Just don't do it. Don't take his helmet off. I don't understand any fan that wants to see his face. Who cares? Why? You know what I mean? Like,
I only want to see his face is if it's really Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And he's all messed up, like you said earlier, and she'd be disgusted. But no, I mean, like, if he's all messed up because he crawled out of the Sarlacc pit. And the reason he doesn't have his other armor is because it was destroyed. And the reason he doesn't have his ship is because someone stole it,
But we do know who he is. I mean, we know that he's not Boba Fett. We've seen the flashbacks.
No, I'm just saying.
We know that he's from some other culture. He's not an actual Mandalorian. He's adopted.
Allow me to have my delusions.
I'm just going with what they're giving us.
I know, but I'm backing up what you're saying because I'm in the same boat. It's like, don't take the helmet off, because if you can't take the helmet off and show me that it's been Boba Fett all along, I don't want his helmet to come off.
Right.
I don't want his helmet to come off at all. But that was one of the things I did like about this episode. I love the idea that they toyed with it, but they actually didn't do it. Because I'm like, we're 4 episodes in. I could see someone making the decision. I was like, nah, it's time to take the helmet off, So I'm glad that they didn't do that. Because in the back of my head, I'm like, well, they just said the helmet goes
firmly
off.
Established even more.
Sorry, we had another
we lost again. We lost the feed for a little bit. What were you saying?
Well, all I was just saying is just they established that if he takes the helmet off, he can't put it back on.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was kind of my thing. It's like, don't do that. Like, just don't even go there. So one of the other things I did like about this episode is, even though he's got this lady and he's tempted to do it, he kept going, no, don't touch my helmet. Don't touch my helmet. And I like that they kept to, what they established. Because for half a second there, I thought, well, here we go. It's going to be like Judge Dredd. He's going to take the Stallone version anyway. He's going to take the helmet off, and he's never going to put it back on. And then it's not even the Mandalorian. It's random guy adventures in space.
What's the actor, right?
Pedro Pascal, and he's a good actor. I don't mean to knock him at all. It's just I love the lore and I love the look, and I want to keep that. So I love the fact that in this episode they kept the lore, and they stuck to it. That's what gives me hope for the show moving forward. Because I didn't hate this episode, but I didn't think it was good as the last 2. But one of the things I do like about this show is like they stuck to the lore. So I think that they're, what I mean? They're going to continue to build and do the world building, which I was enjoying. So.
Yeah, and I do hope that continues. I do not want to see his face.
Yeah. So those are the 2 things that I did enjoy that sucked me in. I like the idea they stuck to the lore about the helmet, and I just liked all the stuff with Baby Yoda. Because it was when she talked about, she's like, oh, there's a way we can stop the walker. And then I saw what they came up with. I was like, okay, I get it. But at the same point, having watched, Return of the Jedi, I know there's all kinds of ways they could have stopped that walker. So it might have been maybe even a little bit less work. So anyhow, yeah. But so is that good for our thoughts on The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, cool. All right. So I guess at this point we're good to probably wrap this up, unless there's anything else you want to cover.
No, I think I'm pretty much good. I think, right. We're looking at just about 2 hours now, so I think we're good.
All right, sounds good. Okay. I want to thank you for watching or listening to this episode of Rogues Radio Podcast Live. Again, the name will be changing soon. Just wait. All of this will soon be revealed. Anyhow, again, my name is Dave Beatty. I'm one of your co-hosts. Again, if you're interested to learn more about me, see some of my artwork, all that kind of silliness, you can obviously do that at my website at davebeatty.com. That's www.davebeaty.com. We should have a graphic for that, and I should stop spelling it because this is no longer just an audio show, but I can't help myself. But you can see all kinds of fun art, read my bio, links to my comic book credits, all that kind of fun stuff. And hey, even sketches there. You could buy a sketch. It could be a Christmas gift for someone that you love. I don't think anyone's going to do that, but I'm going to say it anyway. Anyhow, I want to thank Mr. Eric Alexander for being back yet again. Of course, this is his show too, so obviously he's going to be back again, but I'm running out of things to say. I want to thank him for co-hosting on the show, bringing his insight and observations, because he had some good ones for The Mandalorian I hadn't even thought of. Please, Eric, please tell the viewers or the listeners, why do I keep saying listeners, where to hopefully learn more about you on the interwebs.
Well, I'm most active on Twitter, and that's BaseGod14 at BASSGOD14. By the way, that's not Bass God. I get that a lot. That's bass God because I used to play bass guitar. So I thought I'd put that
You're
out
not a
there as
fishing
well.
champion?
No, I'm not a fishing champion. No, I used to play bass guitar. So yeah, and bass guitar is spelled BASS. So, but it's pronounced bass, not bass. And also, I'm obviously I'm hosting the show on my YouTube, which is also Bass God 14, and we're also on Facebook. And as always, please keep in mind my company, Bad Bob Productions.
Very cool.